Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much for joining the first Blue Panda Lab. We are here aboard on Blue Panda, the WWF sailing boat. We are in Zakynthos, one of the top tourism destinations of Greece, in the Mediterranean, one of the top tourism destinations of the world. And during the lab, we'll try to handle different issues about marine protected areas and tourism and see how these different things can work together. Thank you very much again for being here on a Saturday morning. And we're going to start with a small video, short video about Sekania Beach and the place where the journey of WWF Greece in Zakynthos started.
Βρισκόμαστε στη Ζάκυνθο και ειδικότερα στα Σεκάνια. Τα Σεκάνια είναι παραλία οτοκίας για τη θαλάσσια χελώνα καρέτα-καρέτα και ζώνη απολύτου προστασίας του Εθνικού Θαλάσσιου Πάρκου Zakynthos. Το 1994, το WWF, σε συνέχεια πανευρωπαϊκής εκστρατείας, αγόρασε την έκταση που περιβάλλει την περιοχή. Έκτοτε, με διαχειριστικό πλάνο, με δυναμικές συνέργειες, διαχειρίζεται την περιοχή και προσπαθεί να εξασφαλίσει ότι θα παραμείνει ένας μοναδικός οικότοπος για τη θαλάσσια χελώνα καρέτα-καρέτα. Οι θαλάσσιες χελώνες είναι μεταναστευτικό είδος και ταξιδεύουν χιλιάδες μίλια ώστε να φτάσουν στις παραλίες οτοκίας του κόλπου Λαγανά. Στόχος μας είναι να εξασφαλίσουμε την περιβαλλοντική κατάσταση και την αξία της περιοχής να παραμείνει αναλύωτη. Τα Σεκάνια να είναι ένας μοναδικός οικότοπος που να συνεχίσουν να φιλοξενούν περισσότερες από τις μισές φωλιές του Εθνικού Θαλάσσιου Πάρκου Zakynthos. Παγκοσμίως είναι αναγνωρισμένα ως μία από τις σημαντικότερες παραλίες, γιατί έχουν τη μεγαλύτερη πυκνότητα φωλιοποίησης σε ό,τι αφορά τον αριθμό των φωλιών σε σχέση με το μήκος της παραλίας. Το WWF από το 1994, που αγόρασε την περιοχή που περιβάλλει την παραλία, ενεργοποιείται με δράσεις διαχείρισης, παρακολούθησης και προσπαθεί να είναι παρόν κάθε μέρα στην περιοχή. Κάθε οικολογική παράμετρος είναι σημαντική. Η κόκκι της άμμου, ο πληθυσμός των γλάρων και φυσικά το πρόγραμμα φύλαξης που για μας αποτελεί προτεραιότητα.
The agenda of the lab has been uploaded in the chat, so you can see the flow of the different presentations. And I would also like to inform you that the event is being recorded and it will be uploaded later on the WWF channel for further viewing. And we continue with our first presentation by Demetres Karavellas, the CEO of WWF Greece, to travel us through two different parallel trips, that of the Sekania protection and of the story of WWF Greece. Thank you, Demetres.
Thank you. Good morning to everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you all. Unfortunately, I'm back in Athens. I was aboard the Blue Panda up until 2 days ago, but it's great to be with you from here. It's great to be with old friends on this panel and to be discussing this topic of marine protected areas and tourism. And I think that the timing is particularly important for this. In the brief amount of time I wanted to talk about this topic, but I wanted to do this looking through the lens, if you like, of Zakynthos in particular, because I think it's a particular area that has a lot to show us, and maybe will provide food for thought and food for discussion. So let me start by just doing a flashback, going back in time in history, say maybe about 3 decades ago, to the early 90s, perhaps the late 80s. At that time, Zakynthos had already become a very popular tourism destination. Friendly people, beautiful nature, amazing beaches, low prices. These were all factors that contributed to making the island a very popular tourism destination from that time. But of course, Zakynthos wasn't just attractive to tourists. Largely through the pioneering work of people like Dimitri Margaritoulis, but also Mr. Arapis, who's with us, with the initial work of ARCHELON, it had already been established at that time that the Bay of Laganas actually had 6 nesting beaches that were critically important to the loggerhead sea turtle. And also, it had already been established through research that this area was also very important for other species and other habitats, Mediterranean monk seals, Posidonia, Eleonora falcons. So what we actually had from the beginning was one mass tourism, so to speak, hotspot, and one biodiversity hotspot in exactly the same location. And at that time, in the early 90s, we were already seeing the impact, the footprint of tourism on these nesting beaches. Now, moving forward quickly, the marine park in Zakynthos, the marine protected area, was established in 1999. I'm sure other speakers will give us a lot more detail about that, but so I won't go into the details. It was established in 1999 following a concerted lobbying effort of local and national NGOs, Greenpeace, Mediaset, ARCHELON, the Zakynthos ecological movement, ourselves, many international NGOs, and of course with a lot of pressure from the European Union. And despite the fact that the Marine Park of Zakynthos today still faces many challenges and many problems, the reality is that we have in place a designated protected status. And I can assure you that if that marine park had not been established at that time, the situation today on Zakynthos would be a very, very different situation. So that is actually, in a nutshell, what happened. But I would like to share with you sort of a few broader lessons learned or personal reflections that might actually be useful. The first point I wanted to make in this discussion around MPAs and tourism, the first point I wanted to make is the importance of agreeing on priorities, on values. I think this is absolutely key. Yes, tourism and MPAs can actually coexist, but let's remember that the primary reason or justification behind the establishment of a marine protected area is a particular species or a habitat or an ecosystem or a fishery that deserves or requires a protected or a conservation status. And so when we think about planning for tourism or tourism related activities, that conservation status needs to be a priority in that discussion. And in the experience of Zakynthos, we saw that those priorities for a long time were conflicting. And the main conflict there was actually about one critical resource, the resource of space. And so as the footprint of tourism in the Mediterranean grows, and when I talk about footprint, that has, of course, many facets. It might be demand for more space, demand for more water, demand for more food, for more fish, creation of more plastic, et cetera, et cetera. As that footprint grows, and at the same time, as we see the trends of biodiversity decline in the Mediterranean and globally, it's important that we keep that value and that priority key, the conservation status of the species or of the ecosystem for which the MPA was established. So the first point I wanted to make was about agreeing on priorities and values. The second point I wanted to make is that, well, when we talk about tourism, of course, and protected areas, not all types of tourism are the same. Not all types of tourism have the same footprint. And when you talk about compatibility with MPAs, you know, a properly planned, for example, well-managed ecotourism activity or diving tourism may have a very, very different effect and footprint on an MPA compared to mass tourism. I can give you an example away from Zakynthos and actually in the Aegean region, in the newly established marine protected area of Yaros, which is a very important habitat for monk seals, Mediterranean shear waters, and many other species, we've actually designed underwater trails for divers, because we think if well managed, this is an activity that will not impact the MPA negatively, but will actually generate income for the local community. So the second point I wanted to make is, what is the tourism model we're actually thinking about? And how does that link to the marine protected area? The third point and reflection I really wanted to make is this. You know, when we look at the experience of Zakynthos, but also many other marine protected areas, there is no doubt that there is a critical role and responsibility of the government. The government is absolutely key in setting the framework, in establishing the regulations, in monitoring compliance, in responding to its obligations and actually doing its job. But the government on its own is not enough. And if we want MPAs, marine parks and tourism to coexist, we need different stakeholders to come together from the very early stages. The issue of timing is absolutely critical, I think. From the very early stages, to listen deeply to each other, to find common ground, and perhaps even, I would say, together to engage in dialogue with the government. And in fact, I'm sure Mr. Arapis will tell us more about this, but in fact, in the case of Zakynthos, many NGOs came together in the early 90s to actually develop a set of common proposals and to try and lobby the government with that as a basis. So the third point I wanted to make there is about not just the role of governments in doing their job, in establishing marine protected areas, but the importance of different stakeholders coming together, listening to each other, and trying to establish that common ground, so to speak, in finding that balance between marine protected areas and tourism. The next point I wanted to make is a pitch around the need to be bold sometimes and the need to innovate. And how that might actually catalyze solutions. You saw in that little video in the introduction, a colleague of mine, Chariklia, showing us Sekania beach. Now, that's an interesting case, because what actually happened there, as Chariklia mentioned, was that in 1994, WWF took the decision, following advice of ARCHELON and others, to purchase the land surrounding Sekania Beach. Now, purchasing land for nature conservation reasons is something that is actually quite common in many parts of the world, but it had never been done before in Greece. Until today, it's actually the only, I think it's the only such example. And I can tell you, because I was actually working on the island at that time, I can tell you when we decided to do this, and when we announced that was going to happen, lots of people thought we were crazy. You know, it was just incomprehensible that an NGO would actually be purchasing land just to conserve it. Others, of course, didn't believe us. I remember at that time headlines of local newspapers saying WWF is going to build a Club Med on Sekania. It was just difficult to understand that an NGO would actually, you know, do this. And I can also tell you at that time, when we decided to buy this land, we didn't have the money. It was 32 hectares of land. The price was somewhere in the order of 2 million euros. In 1994, that was a hell of a lot of money. It still is in 2021. And we took that decision, that risky decision to proceed. Fortunately, we ran a campaign throughout Europe. We had the support of thousands of supporters and of the WWF network and individuals, of course, like Luke Hoffman, and the collaboration of many NGOs to make that happen. But why is this important? Well, firstly, it was important because, as Chariklia mentioned in the video, we were able to secure this one beach at a time when we were seeing that tourism was already encroaching on many of the nesting beaches. We said to ourselves at that time, we can't let this happen. And we were able to secure that nesting beach. And to this day, that is the situation. The second point I think that was important then, and maybe Mr. Arapis will tell us more about this later, is that this happened 5 years before the establishment of the marine park. And it actually acted as a catalyst in that process. It was an additional point that we could take to the government in terms of establishing that park, and is now the core, the area of absolute protection within that marine park. So the point I really wanted to make there is, while everything is also happening, it's important for us to be bold and innovative, and sometimes to take emergency measures to make things work. The final point I really wanted to make is not about the past, but it's about looking towards the future. And I think that any discussion about marine protected areas and tourism needs to be looking at some of the key future trends that will actually affect that relationship. We find ourselves in rapidly changing times. If we were talking about, if one were to say that a pandemic would have paralyzed the world and taken such a massive death toll 5 years ago, we would have thought that this would be a science fiction story. Not so long ago, a lot of people thought climate change was also a science fiction story. Well, both unfortunately are realities. And WWF released a report just a few weeks back looking at climate change in the Mediterranean. We know that the Mediterranean is one of the climate hotspots. We know that the Mediterranean is heating up quicker, 20% quicker than most areas than the average. We know that we will be seeing more invasive species in the Mediterranean. I was just speaking to a colleague yesterday who was diving, retrieving some of the ghost nets in the marine park, and he was telling me he saw lionfish. Well, lionfish 5 years ago, just 5 years ago, you could only see lionfish in the southeastern Aegean, and now it's already in the Ionian. We know that we will be seeing more jellyfish blooms, and the impact that will have not just on the marine environment, but actually the impact that will have on tourism flows. So all I'm trying to say here is that these times are changing, and we need to take account of those trends. We also know, and we hope, I would say, that at the political level, there is a trend, a push, so to speak, for more marine protected areas. Our message as we're sailing with the Blue Panda throughout the Mediterranean in marine protected areas, our message is about 30% protection. It's about more protection, but it's also about more effective protection. It's not important just to have larger numbers. We actually need to be talking about parks that work. And so that is also a very clear trend that we need to be taking into account when we look at this relationship. In closing, let me just say this: Greece and the Mediterranean, it's clear that we need to step up in establishing well-managed marine protected areas. In Greece, for example, you may know that the present surface area of marine Natura 2000 sites is somewhere in the order of 20%. You say, wow, that's an impressive number. We're on a good start. If you actually ask about, how many areas have management plans in place, have measures that have been agreed, have a designated protected status, that percentage is very, very, very low. So we have a ways to go. It is, I think, from a national and from an international perspective, our legal and moral obligation to do so. At the same time, we're all very much aware of the fact that tourism, both for the Mediterranean and for Greece, is one of the main industries. It's a very, very important source of income at a national and at a local level. And so we need to find a way to establish this balance, to find a balance between marine protected areas and tourism. and make it so that at the end of the day, when we talk about success, that success is reflected not only in the benefits that tourism bring to the local community or to the national economy, but to the conservation status of those areas. I'll stop there. Thank you very much. You're muted. Anayota, you're muted.
Sorry. I was saying thank you for the presentation, and also that we're having a small technical problem on the Blue Panda. So we're going to change a little bit the flow of the agenda, and we'll continue with 2 short videos on volunteers. Volunteers are an important aspect and asset of conservation, and actually nothing can be done without volunteers. So we have an old volunteer, how the Sekania purchase became a reality with the help of many, many people. And the second one is about the volunteer program of ARCHELON, the NGO that works in Zakynthos and monitors the nests, and is a crucial player in the conservation of the species in the island. Thank you.
Ονομάζομαι Ηλίας Θηρίτης και είμαι στέλεχος του WWF Sweden. Αυτό το μικρό χαρτί που έχω στα χέρια μου κρύβει μια προσωπική ιστορία. Όταν πριν από 27 χρόνια, ως μαθητής Δευτέρας Λυκείου, 17 χρονών, ανταποκρίθηκα στο κάλεσμα του WWF Sweden να αποκτήσουμε την έκταση που περιβάλλει την παραλία του Sekania. Πάμε ακόμα, με πολύ κόπο, συγκέντρωσα το ποσό των 5.000 δραχμών για να αποκτήσω και εγώ 2 τετραγωνικά μέτρα της έκτασης αυτής, προκειμένου να μπορέσουμε να προστατεύσουμε τη σημαντικότερη τώρα παραλία οτοκίας χελώνας καρέτα-καρέτα στη Μεσόγειο. Το όνειρό μας, λοιπόν, εμένα και εκατοντάδων ανθρώπων που τότε υποστήριξαν αυτή την πρωτοβουλία του WWF Sweden, έγινε πραγματικότητα. Και σήμερα είμαι πάλι εδώ, σας δείχνω την παραλία των Sekaniών μέσα στο Εθνικό Πάρκο Zakynthou, όπου αυτή τη στιγμή αποτελεί τη σημαντικότερη παραλία οτοκίας της χελώνας καρέτα-καρέτα στη Μεσόγειο. Και είναι μια πρωτοβουλία που με κάνει να νιώθω υπερήφανο, όχι μόνο γιατί είμαι στέλεχος του WWF Sweden και το WWF Sweden ήταν έλα την πρωτοβουλία, αλλά και εγώ συμμετείχα ως μαθητής, ως 17χρονος, με αυτό το ισχυρό μου χατζηλίκι, προκειμένου να γίνει αυτό το σημαντικό έργο. Εύχομαι λοιπόν το WWF Sweden για τα επόμενα 30 χρόνια να κάνει τέτοιες πρωτοβουλίες που σημαίνουν την ουσιαστική προστασία της ελληνικής φύσης και των πολύτιμων ειδών που έχει.
Hello, I'm Demetres. I'm 24 years old. I'm from Greece, and I've been coming to ARCHELON for 4 years now. I started in 2018 here in Zakynthos, and I've been coming back ever since. And I first started as a volunteer because I really enjoy the environment. I really want to protect the environment. I was interested to do that. And my experience at first was really enjoyable. I really like the people here. We all came together here for a common purpose, for a common cause, and I found it very interesting. And I also enjoyed a lot the work that we do here, both the monitoring and the awareness part of the project, but especially the monitoring. That's why I'm back here now as a monitoring coordinator as well. I really enjoyed the morning surveys, the night service that we do. And in general, the protection of the sea turtles, I think it's of major importance, especially here in this island with all the touristic activity.
Okay, hi, I'm Lisbeth. I'm from Germany. I'm also part of the monitoring team. This is my 3rd year here in Zakynthos. I've been a volunteer in 2019 and 2020. In hatchling season, and this year I decided to come back for nesting season and hatchling season, so for the whole period. I'm really enjoying it because it's just great to see all the work that has been done for so many years and to be part of it, to really try to push it further, to make progress, and to do our best to protect the turtles and the habitat here.
Hi everyone, my name is Lena. I'm from Germany and I'm in Zakynthos this year as part of the monitoring team as well. I've been doing this for a couple of years. I first started in 2015 as a volunteer. In Zakynthos, I've only ever been to Zakynthos really. And yes, I really love the work we do here. I do enjoy I don't know, living in a big camp full of volunteers to all work for the same thing. I do enjoy the work we do on the beaches. I love the monitoring work we do with the turtles, morning surveys, night surveys. It's been a great season so far. Quite successful, quite tiring at the moment because we're at peak nesting. So there's lots of things happening, lots of things to do right now. But we're also, I think still going strong. So I'm excited for more to come too. Okay.
This video and all the others that we're going to see during the lab, plus additional voices, because there are many stakeholders necessary for both the protection of marine protected areas and the sustainable development of human activities, are available in a link. You can see it in the chat. And it's a video library that you can visit and watch. Our next presentation is by Mr. Laurent Sourbes, who is the coordinator of the Marine Protected Park of Zakynthos, and also the Vice President of MedPAN, of the Network of Marine Protected Areas of the Mediterranean, who is going to talk us about the sustainable management of protected areas and the challenges of the everyday work and, of course, the challenge of the post-COVID area.
Thank you. At first, I would like to thank you for the invitation. I believe it's a very important event, and it's an opportunity to share a lot of thoughts about protection, about management, about tourism, how are they compatible or not. So I just, in order to show this very specific case that is called Zakynthos or Laganage Bay, regarding nesting activity that is so important, I have to remind that it's known and as a very important place, that it's about 20 or maybe 30% of the Mediterranean effort of nesting activity. So this is a key area that should be protected and managed. So not to remind exactly the history, but just to say that the management agency is working now is operating for 20 years. At this time we are speaking, there are 28 people working, and from that 15 are specifically dedicated to the wardening, public awareness, and also monitoring on field. So it's a huge work, and there are a lot of issues to consider, and this is the problem of management of a protected area. At first, it's by definition very complicated, and you need an ecosystemic approach. It means that you see the whole thing as a system. If else you lose or you don't see what is important or what you have to change or what you have to mitigate or to make better in order to be efficient. So there are a lot of issues that concern the national park. The main issues is about activities. It's a fact that it's the fourth or fifth tourism destination in Greece at this moment. So we speak about 800,000 people coming with charter flights. You can add also people coming by boats. So it's more than 1 million at least until 2019. Now, what does it mean? It means that these people are using accommodations, roads, and going into the marine area. So you have to manage. You have to manage the visitors. You have to manage also all the needs around, and also all the pressure, because those people, they will reach the sea, so they need a road. And this road, is it okay? You can build it or you cannot build it. So there are a lot of things to consider. If you don't have this global approach, you will face more and more problems because there are more and more pressure. And this is a fact that is for Zakynthos really, I don't know where we are because I'm sorry, I cannot see exactly what I'm presenting, but yes, okay, exactly. Now I'm changing on the screen. So this is very important to understand that when we are speaking about the type of tourism, and this is mass tourism mainly, a very small part is considered as an alternative tourism or sustainable tourism. So there are a lot of things to consider. At first, you have to consider the arrivals, well, they're coming by airplane, so you need not to have flights during the night. And so you need a ban, but there's a pressure now, and because there are so many people coming, and it could increase and more. It could be 1 million in 2020. So, or 21, 22, 23. So you need to have some rules. Just to mention about fishing activity, that it's a small scale, really fishing activity in the Bay of Laganas. So there is a cooperation and a monitoring of this activity. The pressure brought to the marine area from this activity is not considered as very high because it's under control. There are no, it's only the small scale fisheries. So there's no recreational fisheries. There are no trailing boats. So it means that they are in this area really practicing the traditional way of fishing. So next. So just to show that when you are the first topic, if you want, of the protection, Zakynthos National Marine Park is about sea turtles. There are a lot of dangers, so a lot of things to consider. And it means that from the management point of view, you have to at first assess, you have to monitor, you have to know what is going on. And afterward, you have to implement management measures. So those management measures are crucial because they are the one that will allow us for every nesting beach, because there are 6 nesting beaches. But that means that there are different type of tourism, different access by boat, by the road. So for each beach, you have to consider every variable. And also you have to consider priorities. It depends on the pressure that is brought. And this pressure can be 1 year, a very specific pressure directly on the beach, but the other could be in the sea, and regarding also the safety, let's say, of the sea turtles in the marine area, because there is really a severe issue about that. So there is also in the National Marine Park, but let's say not in the area of the nesting beaches. There is also a diving activity that is considered by us, of course, as sustainable. So just to say that when we are speaking about management, we have to consider everything. And we have to adapt also the way we are looking just to think that is beginning from the local society. So you need also to influence, you need to give knowledge, training, you need to have programs of environmental education, also participatory approach with the local authorities. And so it's a long way, it's an ongoing process. You cannot stop it. It's something that you need to always work on it, because always there are new plans, and you have to be also as a manager, a part of the management of the planning, regional planning, local planning, whatever, but you have to show, because what is important with the MPA, with a protected area, that in fact we are a step forward, because we are used to have some areas with rules. So we need the use, and there are uses. And this is something that you don't find in Greece, at least in other areas that are not protected, that define exactly what kind of rules of activities you can have, and some carrying capacity also. So this is something that should be an example also for the general planning. So let's say that what is important is that one time when you're a manager, so you have to say, okay, am I successful? Am I efficient or not? It's a very complicated issue. I won't say about that. I won't answer. But just to say that regarding the numbers, there is a recovery of the nesting activities from now, for now 10 years. This recovery is quite important, because it's not only, let's say, general, it's mainly about some very, very popular beaches. And especially in Kalamaki. Kalamaki this year, we are speaking now, we reached already a number that we never reached in 37 years. So even if there are people, if there are activities, so this is just to say that when you are on field, when you are there, there is an infrastructure, there are activities, there's a control. But also I believe the activities for now 20 years are playing a role. So you have to be on field, you have to be, to act. You cannot only say, don't do that, it's not possible. So regarding the nesting activities, there are a lot of factors to consider. Just to say that also one issue that is very important is about the integrity, how the turtles will be safe in the Laganas Bay when they are mating, when they are staying in front of Iosostis, and they will rest in one way, so they have to be safe. And there are a lot of issues about that. So it's an example that it's interesting, because from, let's say, 100 speedboats, yeah, they were not considered as one speedboats, but now there are 400 or 500. So it means that the legislation also should be adapted. It's not, from managers, it's not possible to have other legislations that are, you cannot play your role, you cannot inform, you cannot say, you have to make a regulation about that. And so I believe that there's a huge work also to do at the ministries level, to cooperate between them, and to know that when you are giving new regulations and you are deciding, you have to make exceptions. You have to consider always that there are protected areas. If you do that and you don't consider protected areas, afterward it's very complicated to change it. So monitoring is a very huge part of the work. In this, we have a very tight cooperation with, especially with ARCHELON. It's a fact, and for so many years. And this is just to underline that without that, it won't be possible to be, let's say, quite efficient, because you have to always reconsider what you are doing, and you need scientific data. You cannot estimate it like that. You need to understand what is the life cycle of the sea turtle. So you need information, and this is the beginning. And after, the way you are using this knowledge to make it, let's say, approachable by decision makers and politicians, and you can show that. At first, you have to show that you have sound data, that what you are speaking about is quite the reality and not something that you would like. Just to conclude a little bit about what is our approach is that, let's say after 20 years of experience, that you have to consider different components that are looking on field with the monitoring, surveillance, public awareness. But around that, you need to act on governance, funding, participative approach, and of course, capacity building is crucial. It's something we are working on a lot at the Mediterranean level now. Capacity building, because managers are supposed to know what they are speaking about. So whatever is it, if it could be for sea turtle, but also for monk seals, or also for fish stocks and Posidonia and whatever habitats are concerned in the marine protected areas. Yeah. So what is interesting with sea turtles that they are, by themselves, they are big travelers. They are a good example how borders are really relative. It's not something that they consider. They don't have borders, of course. And the only thing is that we know that the sea turtles nesting in and mating in Zakynthos are mainly going north in the Adriatic Sea and south in Tunisia, Gabes Gulf. So there's a fidelity you have to consider when you're speaking about sea turtles. It means that they will come back where they were born, but also about wintering areas also they are using. And this is a map that you can see now that shows, let's say, the knowledge at this time about foraging areas, wintering, about nesting areas in the Mediterranean. So it shows very simply that in order to protect, you have to cooperate. You have to be a part of a whole. You cannot be only the manager of your protected area. So this is just to show that when you consider the way the turtles are following, they are on all their ways, they are protected, marine protected areas. So you have to find a way to federate and to make synergies in order to be efficient, because there is no reason to protect nesting beaches in Zakynthos if you don't protect them when they are winter in wintering areas. So it's the way now it's about to protect the whole Mediterranean. And what is important is that there are also objectives at the international level. And until now, we didn't reach the objectives that are, or maybe reach them, but as it was mentioned before, you have to prove also that it's really managed. So the Taichi target was to reach 10% of the Mediterranean as MPAs. It's something that now in 2026, in 2016, it was reaching 7% about. So you need a network, you need people that will cooperate between them. And this is the idea. The idea is to strengthen the links and also the common issues, the common problematics we got, and to make it more efficient, not to reinvent what is made in other protected areas. So you need to exchange, You need also to build capacity, to make the people follow training sessions. And you need also to meet, and you need also to reconsider always what you are doing. So this means that you are cooperating at all levels. And this is very important because, as I showed before, and regarding as an example, the sea turtles, if you don't consider every level, you will lose. You won't be able to have measures, action plans at the Mediterranean level that concern endangered species. So you need to also address the international point of view and the political point of view. So there are conventions and there are also NGOs that are acting, that are very important. So you have to make them all together work in order to solve those issues. So this work, if you want, is about evaluating also the status of the MPAs and the evolution. So this is something that is very important always, to have the capacity to estimate what is the evolution. You know, when you are acting and you are in the field, you lose sometimes the reality, or maybe the level where the decisions are taken. So you have to reconnect, and this is the idea of bottom-up approach, that yes, you are acting at the local level, but you have to make this information going up. If it's useless. So what I said before, it's about the percentage of the protected areas in the Mediterranean. You can see it was very small, but next, if you want. What is important is even if we reach the 10% target, what is they are the declared MPAs. So it means that they are not maybe efficiently protected, and also what is needed for manager and really for recovery of resources is strictly protected areas, as Sekania is. You need that. You need it has been shown and proven that it's quite efficient. And at this time we are speaking, it's about 0.04% in the Mediterranean, strictly protected areas. So there is a long way also about the way we are tackling all problems and issues in the Mediterranean. Because the beginning was about, the question was about the challenges post-COVID. Let's say that we had those 2 years, 2000 and 2001. It was very strange, of course, for everybody, not about only measures, but about our work. And but we managed, we cooperated, and also the cooperation with ARCHELON in 2020, even if it was very complicated for the volunteers to come and whatever, but we managed. So it was important. We saw some changes in the behavior of sea turtles, and especially regarding the way they are approaching the shore, the coastline, more than when there is people around. So it's something that didn't have maybe an impact on the nesting activity really, but it was important to make the comparison. So it's a kind of 0 point, and it's quite important also to be able to compare with other periods. So just to say about after 2001 and what is going on now, I'm afraid that we will come back, and it will be exactly what I showed in the beginning, this pressure, the number of visitors. So we at first we have to be ready and able to make what we made before 2019. So we have also to learn lessons, to be able to adapt changes, and we have to be able to reconsider things. We consider that there are so many issues in the Mediterranean. Climate change is a huge issue also for the biodiversity, that every pressure, more pressure means more difficulties to solve all those problems. So this is my conclusion, and I thank you a lot.
Thank you, Laurent, for a very interesting presentation. And well, we know that loggerhead turtles and tourists all prefer and favor the same beaches. So now, Mr. Thomas Arapis, the president of ARCHELON, the Sea Turtle Protection Society of Greece, will discuss a little bit more on the challenges of conservation on a top tourism destination. Mr. Arapis.
Yes, hello. I will need to do share screen. Am I allowed to do so?
Yes, just a minute.
Okay.
Yes, you can. We can see your screen now.
Yes. Just give me 30 seconds, please. Okay. Can you all see now? Okay. Good. Thank you very much for this invitation. I would like to congratulate WWF for the organization of this very important meeting, topic, event. My topic of my presentation is going to be tourism and MPAs, the challenge of conservation in a top tourism destination. And I will try to focus, after presenting some aspects, some details of the framework in which we are going to be moving over the next few years, maybe 10 years. I will then try to present some facts focusing on tourism on the island of Zakynthos. And I will try to conclude to what would be, in my opinion, the way forward if conservation and tourism development are to coexist. So, this is a key statement regarding the first actor of my presentation, the actor being conservation of biodiversity. So under this very encouraging motto, bringing nature back into our lives, it is very important to find out that the EU biodiversity strategy for 2030 mentions changes in land and sea use, overexploitation, climate change, pollution, and invasive of alien species as the 5 main direct drivers of biodiversity loss. Okay. We can see the changes in our everyday lives. Concrete blocks rising up on green spaces, wilderness disappearing in front of our eyes, and more species being put at risk of extinction than at any point in human history. It is estimated that in the last 4 decades, global wildlife populations fell by 60% as a result of human activities. And almost 3/4 of the Earth's surface have been altered, squeezing nature into an ever smaller corner of the planet. This is a quote from the EU Biodiversity Strategy for 2030. This strategy is associated by an action plan, which is, according to their declaration, a comprehensive, ambitious long-term plan for protecting nature and preserving the degradation of ecosystems. This action plan aims to put Europe's biodiversity on a path to recovery by 2030, very ambitious, if I may say, with benefits for people, the climate, and the planet. So the biodiversity strategy is a core part of the so-called European Green Deal, and will also support a green recovery following the COVID-19 pandemic. Now, according to the European Environment Agency, Europe will not achieve these 2030 goals without urgent action during the next 10 years to address the alarming rate of biodiversity loss, increasing impacts of climate change, and the overconsumption of natural resources. These environmental challenges, according to their estimation, is of unprecedented scale and urgency. To keep going, again from the EEA, Europe will not achieve this sustainability vision of living well within the limits of our planet simply by promoting economic growth and seeking to manage harmful side effects with environmental and social policy tools. Instead, they stress, sustainability needs to become the guiding principle for ambitious and coherent policies and actions across society. And it ends by urging Europe that this is the time to act towards sustainability challenges. So that was a few points regarding the first actor being the biodiversity conservation. Now, the second actor in question is tourism, and not just plain tourism, but sustainable tourism. So according to the European Parliament resolution of 25th of March 2021 on establishing a European strategy for sustainable tourism, there are 2 points which I believe is worth mentioning. It is advised by the European Parliament to strengthen the transition to sustainable, responsible, and smart tourism. These are the keywords which are going to prevail within any kind of action that will be taken during the next decade in the course of sustainable tourism and biodiversity conservation. Also, the European Parliament calls on the member states to devise sustainable tourism action plans, both at national and regional level, in consultation with stakeholders and civil society, and in line with a future European roadmap for sustainable tourism, and to make full use of the next generation EU funds to finance the tourism transition action plans. So this is the core way which has been indicated by the European Parliament and which is of course going to be adopted by the European Union on the way towards what we are discussing today. Regarding Europe, of course, and Mediterranean, but the northern part of the Mediterranean. Now, let's try to focus a little bit on Zakynthos tourism. According to the study, a very recent study by Dianeosis and the Athens University, there are some, amongst the Greek areas of intense tourism, which are going to be dramatically affected by climate change, are Crete, Rhodes, South Chalkidiki, and Zakynthos. So Zakynthos is one of the 4 top tourism destinations of Greece, which are going to be affected more, amongst others, by climate change. As these destinations are already very developed touristically, it is necessary in principle to manage the tourist flows and the natural and cultural resources in order to limit the further concentration of tourist development. At the same time, efforts should be made to restructure as much as possible the productive operation of the destinations as well as their existing building infrastructure. So according to this study, there are 2 very important, vital, I would say, points being stressed. Okay, the one is limit further concentration of tourist development on Zakynthos, and efforts to restructure as much as possible the productive operation of Zakynthos as well as its existing building infrastructure. I'm dropping a fact here from the settlement of Laganas, which has been suffering from a complete lack of tourism planning. As you can see, transition to sustainable, responsible, and smart tourism in this area looks more like an elusive dream at the moment. I'm sure you will agree with that. A similar comment here regarding organization, if I may use this word, of day visits to Marathonisi Island in Laganas Bay. Okay. Same here. Sea turtle spotting, a tourist attraction in the Laganas Bay. And here. Due to inadequate supervision of the maritime area of the National Marine Park of Zakynthos, and this is because the Coast Guard does not have sufficient staff to meet these needs. Due to this, as a result, there's a number of injured and even dead turtles from collisions with illegally operating speedboats that occur in the area of the marine park almost every year, 20 years after the establishment of the park. Here is a picture of the opening of an illegal road above Daphne Beach in 2015. Six years later, today, no restoration works have taken place so far. Still on Daphne Beach, for several years now, all the buildings and the consequent constructions, except for a small building on the beach of Daphne, have been declared by court irrevocably illegal and demolishable. Nevertheless, they are still in operation, serving customers every year. Increasing tourist traffic due to the illegal operation of the illegal constructions on Daphne leads to more new illegalities in order to serve the needs of customers, such as the illegal opening of this car parking. As mentioned before, ARCHELON and all of us owe a debt of gratitude to Luc Hoffman for his decisive intervention for the purchase of Sekania by WWF, with the aim of its absolute protection. Without the absolute guarantee of protection on Sekania Beach, which gathers almost half of the sea turtle nests on Zakynthos, it is quite doubtful whether the National Marine Park of Zakynthos would ever be established. I fully agree with what was mentioned by Demetres Karavellas before. Here we can see personnel of the Marine Park informing tourists on sea traffic regulations. Unfortunately, the Greek state has not ever and yet delegated guardianship and supervision responsibilities to the National Park staff. So these were just a few examples to highlight the scenery of this play, which is being played on the island of Zakynthos. Due to the intense tourist pressure, the sea turtle nests are recorded and protected one by one on all the beaches of the park, with the exception of Sekania, which of course is under the status of absolute protection and effectively safeguarded by WWF Greece. This arduous work of monitoring and safeguarding every single nest on Zakynthos every year is carried out systematically and consistently since 1983 by the staff and the numerous dedicated volunteers of ARCHELON, with the assistance and cooperation of the employees of the Marine Park. There are also enormous efforts which are being made to raise the awareness of tourists, of tourism businesses, and the local public. Quite often, working for the promotion of cooperation and support of a broad network of international conservation organizations, just like our today event. This is from the previous visit of Blue Panda and Zakynthos. So, where is Zakynthos standing regarding all these? Who is going to prevail, tourism or conservation? Is it possible for both to coexist in a harmonious manner? What needs to be done for this coexistence, if there is a win-win situation? After all, it is clear that there is a strong tourist force as well as a strong conservation force, comprising the National Marine Park of Zakynthos, ARCHELON, WWF Greece, and other NGOs involved. Over the past few years, Solimar International, a private enterprise dealing with development of tourism, has analyzed its sustainable tourism projects as well as partner projects to begin identifying direct linkages between three components, being sustainable tourism, biodiversity conservation, and community development. The results has been the development of 6 tourism conservation models that represent overall tourism conservation trends. The 6 tourism conservation models are presented here in order of increasing complexity in terms of commitment of resources, money, time, infrastructure, in terms of required collaboration amongst stakeholders, and in terms of overall coordination and implementation. So you can see, I don't know if you can see my cursor. I can, but I don't know if you can see that. These are the blue ones, are the 6 conservation models involving sustainable tourism, conservation of biodiversity, and local development. And the complexity increases as we go downwards, okay, from number 1 to number 6. So if we could spare enough time to study this graph, which we don't at the moment, of course, in this short event, we would possibly result in identifying that in the case of Zakynthos, there is a weak cornerstone for a transition towards a more desired, responsible, and smart equilibrium. And this weak cornerstone of this equation is, in my opinion, the community development component. This is my personal view. I would be very interested to further discuss about this during the round table later on. But I think we need to focus to a well-elaborated model and try to go in an in-depth analysis, trying to locate what is being done at the moment, what needs to be done, and what is the distance that separates the case of Zakynthos from a smart coexistence of these cornerstone parameters. Tourism, sustainable tourism, biodiversity conservation, and local development. In my opinion, there is a lot which is being done by the conservation effort which is being put into the system of Zakynthos. We are all doing our best, or almost our best, everybody. On the other hand, on the other side, tourism is exercising a big pressure. I completely agree with what was mentioned ago, that after the COVID pandemic, unfortunately, the trend will be get back to business as usual. This is the model, the only model which I can envisage as the most possible right now. So the way to get out of this pitfall is only one and only. The strong industry of tourism on Zakynthos needs to seriously start considering about what is sustainability tourism on the island, on what means biodiversity conservation for the continuation of their enterprises, and what is the local development desired on the island of Zakynthos. For the latter, there is a strong need of serious involvement of the local stakeholders, local population, because many hotel owners are not local residents of Zakynthos. But of course, as I said, this is just my point of view, and it requires a lot of consideration. I would like to close my presentation by bringing your attention to this exquisite definition by Europark on the term in question, which is, of course, sustainable tourism. We believe that sustainable tourism is a state of mind, a conscious choice to work, live, and be on holiday in a different way. Thank you.
Arapis, it was a very interesting presentation touching a lot of different issues. It is clear that we just don't need only protected areas, we need effective protection, and we need a wider alliance in order to have sustainable tourism. But if we stay in the issue of marine protected areas, our next speaker, Mrs. Marina Gomei from the Mediterranean Marine Initiative of WWF, will explain why we urgently need bold and far-reaching activities in order to increase the level of protection in the Mediterranean. Thank you, Marina.
Thank you, Panagiotta, and thanks to everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I'm going to share my screen. Can you see it right? Okay. Thank you. Well, actually, I wish I was there and not here in Rome, at home. I'm personally very connected with Zakynthos. I went to Lagana Bay and protected areas 6 years ago with my son who was 5 months old. It was our first experience with the kids, and it was amazing. And thanks to Laurent, we were able to discover the precious beauty and richness of the island, and especially diving and swimming with the sea turtle and looking at the monk seal. It was amazing. And, you know, this place is in my heart. And I'm really happy to bring my little contribution to this fantastic and exciting Blue Panda lab of the Blue Panda journey of WWF. And my role here is to, let's say, to set and to frame the discussion of today on a larger scale, at the Mediterranean scale, and also to share some of the recommendations and lessons learned from WWF. So of course, the Mediterranean, it's a complex seascape, not only because of the melting pot of different culture, people, economy, also because it hosts 150 million people that are living around the Mediterranean shores. But adding to these numbers, we should consider that during spring and summertime, 270 million of tourists are reaching our seashores or coastal areas for holidays. And these numbers a while ago were projected to increase up to 500 million of tourists. Well, we are in the context of the pandemic. Those numbers, of course, would be reviewed, but we should consider that tourism is one of the most resilient economic sector in the world, that it has an interesting record to push back and to come back for after different crises, economic crisis, wars situations, terrorism situations, and we should consider that very well for future planning. The Mediterranean, it is also the place where all the economic activities have been using the space and using the resources throughout the centuries. But in the last decades, with the increase of the technologies, this has arrived to a point where there is an overconsumption and an over-exploitations of the resources and a conflict on of space among all the different sectors, including tourism, but not only, that has an impact on the overall status of the Mediterranean marine assets. So we are talking about marine assets and using this economic terminology because those assets, the natural value, are at the fundamental of the economic development and the economic sectors. But the decade of damaging and usually unregulated economic activities have led to a very dramatic impact on those resources. We have the 75% of the commercial fish stocks that are already declared overexploited. The 41% of the marine mammal population has been lost over the past 50 years. The 53% of the Mediterranean sharks are at risk of extinction. And the Posidonia meadows, which is the core of the coastal habitats, has suffered 35% of decline in distribution. Those numbers are for the overall Mediterranean region, but we should consider the current climate change and the effect in the future. So we need to reverse this trend and we need to conserve those assets for the economy, especially for the local economy. And in WWF, we are proposing and pushing for a sustainable and inclusive blue economy. So an economy that takes into consideration the different aspects for a long-term and sustainable future. The first pillar is to reverse the loss of biodiversity and ecosystem by protecting, maintaining, and restoring the integrity of those ecosystems and the biodiversity, which is, again, the intrinsic value of the economy. And then develop a carbon neutral, clean technology, renewable energy, and circular economy that can really transform the business model for the future. And everything should be framed within an inclusive and equitable policy economy, because we need to provide social and economic benefits for all the sectors, also the fragile sector of the society. Now, what is the current protection status? Laurent already showed. I'm going to share again some of the pictures of a recent analysis. So in the Mediterranean, we have established more or less the 10% of the requested targets till 2020, where we can see that the most part of those marine protected areas are here in the northern Western Mediterranean, and the others are very tiny little MPAs. But if we look at the real and effective protection, these numbers drop immediately to 1.27% of marine protected areas that are actually implementing in an effective way their management plan. And overall, only the 0.03 or 0.4, the updated number of no-take zone of the Mediterranean, the areas that can provide the most benefits. So those numbers are very limited, and worldwide governments, but also business and global leaders, scientists are asking for a stronger protection and more ambitious targets. And the European Commission already agreed on those, what we call the post-2020 Global Biodiversity Framework. And in WWF, those recommendations are for the entire marine basin, not only for the European countries. And WWF recommends that the 100% of the sea should be sustainably managed by applying an ecosystem-based approach. So again, by considering the limits of the ecosystems. And we are also recommend to increase the conservation level till the 30%, with a combination of multiple use marine protected areas and other type of effective conservation measures, but at least the 10% of this area should be protected in a strictly way, including no-take zones. Now, how we can achieve this in the Mediterranean, where we have such a crowded environment, where the cultural, natural, and economic value and heritage are so interconnected, especially in the coastal area. How we can address all the challenges that the speakers before me highlighted in Zakynthos, but that can be shared by the most part of the marine protected areas in the Mediterranean. We are not in a remote island in the tropical areas where we can, set aside protection. We are in a crowded environment. So how we can link economic development and conservation, how we can find the balance. First of all, we should, in WWF opinion, we should develop or identify solutions with the two sectors that will be more affected in a positive way by biodiversity recovery. So fishery and tourism, both of them will have let's say a direct benefits. And we want to find common solutions for those sectors. So instead of talking about the last assessment that WWF did with a group of researchers about the 30 by 30 scenario in the Mediterranean, I would like to show a video. And I ask the team there in the Blue Panda to share the YouTube link so we can have a look at that. So as you saw, what we did was to change the narrative and trying to look for which are the benefits for the sectors, not only for the biodiversity component, but also for the economic component, how an economic sector can see the benefits of protection. And this is very important because what we do want is to find solutions with the economic sector. And when we are talking about this at the very local level, the process is the same. By talking with the small-scale fisheries, we can find solution with them if the small-scale fishers are entering in the equation of the decision-making process. And I'm sure my colleagues later on will give examples on this process and how effective can be in marine protected areas, also in Greece. Now, let's move to the tourism sectors, which is not disconnected, because if the fishery component of the equation is well managed, then we can have a healthy environment that can provide much more resources for the tourist industry. The problem with the tourism is that, as other people before me highlighted, is that it's very complicated to manage mass tourism and tourist flow, because this is not regulated and administrated like other sectors, like fisheries. And it is very complicated to keep the benefits to local communities. And usually in marine protected areas and protected areas in general, there is a lack of capacity to tackle these drivers and impacts that are coming from outside the MPA. And at the end, there is always this conflict between the conservation agenda and the tourism agenda, especially at the regional or national level. But of course, tourism is also an opportunity. And we saw it during the COVID restrictions, where less tourists arrived to the marine protected areas and where the little financing opportunities were lost. Now, those financing opportunities could be better exploited, and the link and the partnership with the private sectors, and in this case, the tourist sectors, can be one of the ways to improve the management of marine protected areas. If the the sustainable tourism agenda is embedded in the business plan of the local tourist operators. Also because those operators can become the conservation ambassadors. And we saw this, that, when the tourism is well managed, this can generate jobs also at the local level. If the models is towards an ecotourism, where the revenue can going back to the local people and the local populations. Now, in WWF, in different countries and in different protected areas, including Greece, of course, with my colleagues, we are advocate and supporting different projects and initiatives. And basically, we are focusing on three elements that were already part of them, already mentioned by Thomas in the presentation before, but also by Laurent. So first of all, we should reduce the footprint of tourism. And we have different projects like Pharos for MPAs on Destiments that provided very concrete, practical tools that could be applied. But of course, everything should be framed in an overall improvement of the management of the marine protected areas. And those tools can become one of the elements to be integrated. And then we need to work on the governance, which is let's say, the most fragile part of the equation. We should include the tourist operators and the tourist administration in the decision-making process, what we have called the local ecotourism clusters. It is a sort of co-management with the tourist operator at the local level. But of course, this should be strengthened and scaled up with a much better coordination at the regional level. And WWF is also advocating a better governance of the tourist sectors at the European level. And then we should produce high quality ecotourism products, because till now, the tourist sectors, it's very skeptical in investing in ecotourism because it's very difficult to develop market-ready and commercially valuable product that take, of course, into account both the local communities and the environmental conservation. There are examples to be shared through the MIT network of Mediterranean experience of ecotourism. There are many other type of examples, but there is a niche, and the objective here is to create this niche to support more the arrival of this type of tourism compared to the mass tourism. And to conclude, how we should find the balance between nature and people in marine protected areas. First of all, to invest in local economies, both the small-scale fishery sectors and the ecotourism sectors, involve all the different stakeholder groups towards a co-management of their territory in order to also have the ownership really embedded in the local communities, and ensure, of course, effective protection and enforcement of the rules, and then integrate marine protected area in a wider ecosystem-based ocean management, because, of course, the sea is a wide environment, and those impacts can affect also very well-managed MPAs. And thank you very much for your attention. And I'm happy to take questions maybe at the end of the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Marina. Very interesting. And now we are going to change our view a little bit. And our next speaker is Mr. Joakim Odelberg. He is an awarded conservation photographer and filmmaker who is going to give us a different perspective of protecting our seas and our oceans in the post-COVID era and lessons learned through this experience. And because he's a filmmaker, he will start with a video. Thank you, Joakim. I've been in your world. For sure.
It was almost unnecessarily exciting. Yes, thank you. Thank you. I'm really happy to be here and to be able to talk in that camera there. Hello, everyone. So I'm Joakim Odelberg. I'm a conservation film and photojournalist. And by accident, I would say, I took my first diving certificate when I was 10 years old. I got my first diving mask when I was 3 years old. And the ocean have always been a big, big part in my heart. But it wasn't until many years later when I have the first encounter with a manta ray in Southeast Asia, where it totally changed my whole life. You know, these giant rays that can weigh up to 2,000 kilos. They have the biggest brain of all fish. They are gentle, they are curious, they are social. And she occurred to me like an angel of the depths of the blue. And she stayed with me for a whole 50 minutes, and she just swimming around, and she tapped my head with a fin. And I totally fell in love then and there with this amazing creature. And I never saw a big creature like that before. And that should have been an amazing experience to me. But when I came up in the boat, there was a guy also from Sweden. He opened up the beer can, he knocked it back, and he threw the beer can over his shoulder in the sea. And I reacted really strong to that. And it was so respectless after that meeting we had. So I decided then and there, I took a totally different path in life. I decided then and there to try to raise awareness about this problem we're facing when it comes to marine debris, when it comes to how we treat our oceans. And after that dive, I started to notice things that I haven't noticed before, like garbage, ghost nets, and you name it, human destructive impacts. And yeah, I've been working full-time ever since. And we all know here that our oceans or our planet is covered a little more than 70% of oceans. And for example, coral reefs take up only 1% of that area. And still a quarter of all marine lives live on these reefs. Reefs that are, you know, vital to our existence, reefs that produce the oxygen we breathe. And I used to think of our ocean as one living organism that needs thousands upon thousands upon thousands of different species in order to function. Like a machine that needs all its parts, even if you don't know what each part does. What you do know is when you start to remove those parts, the machine will break down. And it's exactly the same with our oceans. If you start to fish unsustainably, with industrial fishing, if you pollute, if you litter, if you just take it for granted, our ocean will collapse. Only 6% of our oceans are protected today, which means that in reality, 3% are protected, which means that 97% are open for industrial fishing and other exploitation. And this needs to change. And I'm 100% agree with scientists saying that we need to protect 30% of our oceans. Some scientists say 50%. I agree with that too. I've been all over and seen the difference between marine protected areas and non-protected areas. And those often thrive with life. The biodiversity in these protected areas spilling over. And previous talker said something about small scale fishing. And we have to support that. But these marine protected areas, they spill over to the small scale fishermen if we fish in a sustainable way. I'm not going to go into details about that, but we know also that 95% of our ocean is unexplored. And can you imagine 95%, which means that we only discovered 5% of our oceans. Imagine how much we can learn and understand about life and about our planet. 2013, I came to Zakynthos for the first time. I did a job for Panda Planet, WWF Sweden, and I was here to work with the caretta and to film them underwater. That was the main goal. But I quite soon realized that it's quite a complex problem here on this island. And I can relate to my fellow Swedes touristing here on Zakynthos, and I saw how they, didn't care so much about the environment. They left the cigarette butts, they littered, and they left the plastic bottles and plastic bags on the beach, and it will end up in the ocean finally. And I felt I wanted to do something about that. And I also met Heraclea for the first time and Laurent. And I think the secret here that makes me coming back to this island, which I love, has a really special place in my heart, is how the Marine National Park with Laurent, together with WWF Greece and ARCHELON, how they work together prestigeless. And I think that's the secret, because they really achieve good things here. They manage to change a negative trend into a positive result. And I think this is a good example of how you can apply this elsewhere within the Mediterranean in the world, actually. So I keep coming back because I love this island and I love the work people are doing, conservationists are doing here. it's real action being taken here. So I want to actually ask you about the little film. I want you to put on a little put on a little film. Thank you. And so it begins the big journey of a little hatchling. And that's what it's all about, to save life, to be the voice for the voiceless. And I think that hope is not a blind faith. Hope is about having a vision. And reaching a vision requires action, and action can save our future. And that's what it's all about. And together, we have to take more actions, not only talk about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. These were really powerful pictures you've shown us, Joakim, and the narrative behind it. It was really impressive, and I think it shows very clear the perspective of the interested citizen and the concerned citizens, and how tourists can perhaps change their mind. We will continue with another short video from Mrs. Inger Näslund, the Senior Advisor Marine and Fisheries from WWF Sweden.
Hello, I'm Inger Näslund and I work as a marine conservationist at WWF Sweden. From WWF Sweden by the Baltic Sea, we wish WWF Greece by the Mediterranean Sea a happy 30th anniversary and a continuing successful conservation work with marine turtles and other conservation measures to save our oceans. Since more than 5 years, WWF Sweden are continuously supporting the protection of the marine turtle Careta by the Sekania beach at Zakynthos. This to ensure there are guards on the beach protecting against people and fires and other measures so that the turtles have a peaceful place to lay their eggs. Turtles need clean seawater to live in, and they need clean sand to put their nests in. Therefore, the work at Sekania is extremely important. Firstly, because it's a strictly protected area, so there is no people disturbing on the beach. And secondly, because there is a good guarding on the forest fire, and the forest fire would be devastating for the beach as erosion would destroy the good sand at Sekania. So we hope the good work will continue and that the turtles will thrive on the beach.
And now we are going in the last part of our lab. We are going to focus a little bit more on the tourism side. And our next speaker is Dr. Thanasis Kizos, a professor of rural geography in the University of the Aegean. And he will present the role of tourism in ecological important areas. Thank you, Mr. Kizos.
Thank you very much. I see from the schedule that I'm supposed to be finishing my presentation now, so I will be brief about it. I would like now to share my screen. Can you please allow me? Okay, I can now. Okay, thank you. So here it is. I will be talking about tourism mostly, and the role of tourism in ecologically important areas. Hope you can see my presentation. I can't seem to change the.
Well, it seems that we have some connectivity issues. We cannot see the share screen of.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you, but we cannot see your screen.
Yes, I don't know what happened. I'm trying to solve the issue. I will start talking, and while I talk,
Perhaps we can share your presentation.
Okay, that would work as well, I guess.
Okay. Give us a couple of seconds. Stop share from your screen. No, we still cannot see something. Dr. Kizos, can you please stop share? So we can share your presentation. Can you hear us? Okay. Well, it's a live streamed event. These things will happen, I guess. We will continue with Ms. Lougari, a local hotel owner. And we hope that in the meantime, the connectivity issues with Dr. Kizos will be solved. Ms. Lougari.
Good morning. So, good morning from me. Okay, we're ready. We're ready. So, I'm Maria Lougari from Zakynthos, from Castelli Hotel. There. We're very happy to be here with you, and we cannot wait to share our perspective regarding the sustainable profile of a destination like an MPA of Zakynthos could be. So we are located here in Zakynthos. Our presentation will be split in two parts. The one part will be an overview of Castelli Hotel, and the other part will be what is the touristic identity of Zakynthos in our view for a sustainable future. So we will first talk about our sustainability profile and the recognitions we have. We are proud of them, but mainly to stress how much interest there is in the international community regarding sustainability tourism. I have heard from previous speakers, from very important speakers, that there is not enough interest. There is enough interest, and we are here to spread that. And then the second part of our presentation will be around the characteristics of the activities we think would be ideal to be promoted within Zakynthos as an MPA of actively being managed as a sustainable one. We go to the highlights of our hotel. The highlights we're an adults-only hotel set on our own farm, family-owned boutique hotel. We're a small establishment, so we're many times showcasing our best practices in different big organizations, so we're really proud to be with you. We're a pioneer in greening, proudly perhaps the most awarded hotel of Zakynthos Island, especially in sustainability. Our focus is on a great food experience, on the variety of activities offered to our guests with a sense of place. It is important to us that we remind to the guests that they are here, that we offer them the opportunity to interact with the local community, with the nature, with the marine protected area. And I will show you pictures later to make it very vivid and very true. So the sustainability at our hotel is not greenwashing, it is true, it's genuine, it was born together with us. I will speak later about how trendy it is today, and this is a privilege for us. So we're established in 1992, almost 30 years, almost like WWF in a very small scale though. Our building was constructed in an angle shape to preserve Zakynthos' oldest eucalyptus tree. I stress this point always to show that the nature came first and the tourism arrived later. So we are here to develop an island that is so popular, like Zakynthos, around the nature that pre-existed. So sustainability has been fundamental. Our view is as written here, any service, and in particular any hospitality service, are actually affected by their destination. The same holiday product will not be the same if the environment is any different later. So we believe that as hotels, we have the luxury of the leisure time of our guests in our hands. This give us the opportunity, if not only the obligation to provide enough learning experiences to our guests in order to make them realize that we all have to live a sustainable way. So we have this sparkle of sustainability to pass on. Two only examples of how we do this. On arrival at Castelli, the sustainable education is our core way of operating. So when a guest arrives, we offer a cotton bag in order to welcome the guest and ask them to please reduce the plastic use in the hotel. This is not something new. This did not come with the plastic forbidden. This is an old tradition. The sustainability measures are numerous, bigger or smaller, like solar panels, LED lighting, recycling, bag reusing, single packs, and a lot of measures. But now I would like to stress on the recognitions. Again, the recognitions are not just to share with you, of course, I'm proud of them, but this is to stress that the international tourism community does give a lot of interest to the sustainability at the moment. So the first we are presenting are the TUI chose Castelli Hotel, the small hotel in Zakynthos, in the most, let's say, one of the most touristic areas, to showcase as the most sustainable hotel of 2018. This is very big because we were compared with all the hotels that all those hundreds of thousands of tourists fly from UK, Ireland, and the Nordic countries to different countries of the Mediterranean and the whole world. Then again in the Nordics, in Sweden, we were voted online as the third most eco hotel in Greece. And I stress that because we are in a very touristic area. So another recognition that perhaps you are more aware of are the Travel Life Awards and the Green Key. So these accreditations we are very proud to hold since 2010. And this again, of course, we are proud of, but at the same time, these are accreditations that have attracted international attention on sustainability for our destination, because we're the first ones to bring this here. So we're really keen on passing the sparkle. Kuoni, Swiss, and TUI, the German-speaking source markets, have also awarded us previous years, almost 10 years ago, with being sustainable. This I stress again because it's very important to share with you the passion we have about turning tourism more sustainable, and we do have a lot of stakeholders on our side. At the same time, we heard before from other important speakers about lowering the footprint. So both our hotels, the Castelli and the ARCHELON Grand, we have been certified with being bike friendly and hikers friendly also. This means that we promote activities that are very low on carbon footprint. At the same time, they can be very nicely combined with a marine protected area. And we see that, unfortunately, a lot of travelers that arrive to Zakynthos have no idea that they will see careta, they will go biking or hiking or diving. It's a pity because these are the wow experiences. They can go and on the beach and sunbathe anywhere in the world. They can have very expensive rooms anywhere. But this is something very special here with us. At the same time, please don't get me wrong, being sustainable is not enough. We share the guest happiness, so we share holidays. So we have to be exceptional at the same time as a hotel and sustainable at the same time. So we can go quickly. Of course, we have a lot of recognitions from tour operators like TUI or like Kuoni from different source markets as being exceptional in the tourism delivery product, and of course with TripAdvisor and Holiday Check. But that has to be done from a sustainable destination. This is parallel. So what makes the Castelli experience unique and is awarded? It's the pampering feeling. It is two main things that we will talk about very briefly before going to the destination. The sense of place, so the activities that we give the guests to interact with the local nature, with the local community, with the people, and with even the farming and the sea, and the rich food experience. So we go briefly to the food experience. The food experience is very important. It is a way for us to differentiate the guest experience compared to other destinations. And also it's a very extravagant way to share our profit as hoteliers with the local community. We emphasize on the local food experience, and I take pride in open an era for the island on this. So we focus on local sourcing, on vegetables and dairy. We are dedicated to this. The wine served, although we're all-inclusive hotels, again, all-inclusive is misunderstood. The wine we serve is only produced in Zakynthos, so we are very proud to stress this parameter too. And we produce organically our olive oil, which again is produced, local recipes, Mediterranean cuisine. We combine some very luxurious offerings of our hotel together with being very sustainable. And this is the challenge for a hotel like ours. So we try a lot to bridge the green offerings together with more luxurious features. Eucalyptus is the tree I talked to you about protecting it around our tourism hospitality business. And we're proud, in 2017, we opened a new, let's say, period for Zakynthos and the hospitality food experience with farm to table a la carte. This was again awarded as the best European hotel restaurant. And I stress not just to be proud of this, but to make a point that the international community is very interested in this sort of best practices. And since then, I want to be sharing with you that here in Zakynthos, most of the hotels that have a restaurant, they wish to showcase, they have local recipes, they wish to promote that they use a local product. So we're very proud of opening this trend. And the trend has become because actually this is very popular. The guests are very happy to share something local. So let's go and see some pictures now. What we do to offer the guests is local local experience that makes it unique and makes me being here. So we have some categories. The text you can find later on, but let's go to the pictures. So we have a combination. We have outdoor exercise classes. So it's a complementary thing to our guests, a daily routine. They can go in the olive grove and have meditation or yoga or something they can feel very good with themselves with. So we target guests that are of a higher income level, higher education, higher academic background. So they do exercise and they do want to feel good with themselves. Going further, we have our local arts and crafts. So everything is possible, even in the COVID times. We have local crafts workshops within the hotel. This is again complementary. This gives the guest the opportunity to learn the old Greek arts in a very fun way. It is very relaxing, and also it's a way of reusing. So we try to make this a learning experience for the guests, and we try the guests to realize when they go out in the villages, they can purchase some Greek art, and this takes a lot of work, and this is reusing. And we also do cooking classes or olive oil classes that I do not want to show too much. Another idea we have that is very welcome by the guests, and this we do almost for 20 years now. We have olive picking harvest activities with the guests. Again, this is unique, mainly in October, because the tourism season ends in the end of October. And then that is a fantastic opportunity we have to show the guests that Zakynthos is so important in the olive oil making industry, to showcase why the quality of the local olive oil is so good. Actually, to promote, to suggest to the guests to purchase the Greek olive oil, to try and teach them what is important, why the local nature has to be protected in order for the sea world and the nature land-wise to be healthy afterwards for the next generations too. And at the same time, this way we share our profit again with the local community, because when all these guests go back home, the local olive oil is exported, they will buy it, and then that will be a way for guests to come back to receive this fantastic experience again. The next slide also shows another activity we do, very welcome. We showcase our farm. So we have organically vegetations grown within the hotel. The guests actually interact with the local nature, and they love to smell the aroma, pick the herbs and find the eggs from the hens and all that. So this is a way that they can actually respect the nature as it is poor, and this is a way they are very happy to be ready and listen to our volunteers coming up on the next slides about the marine park. So yes, they're very happy with the fruit. They are super happy when they consume this. We are, as we said, we're hikers friendly certified, so the guests are very happy with low carbon footprint to go around, discover the local nature, the local history, the attractions, and again the same with biking. So we are very happy with diving and biking. We can all go together. It's not important to show the pictures. The idea is the same, that we show the guests the nature. The guests are very happy to explore the actual Zakynthos. This is nothing to do with tourism enterprises. This is getting to know the locals. The guests are more happy to see this than eating a very expensive a la carte dinner with us. So one of the very popular also activity is showcasing the Careta. I will go around this again later, but it is an activity we have through the NGO that is running every period since 1994. Every week, my parents were emphasizing on this, and still we are very happy to have a fantastic always cooperation with the local NGO. The guests, I am afraid to clarify that have no idea, unfortunately, in a big part. Although many guests choose us because we are sustainable, unfortunately, it's not promoted enough that it's a protected area. So the guests are very happy to abide by the rules of the MPA. They're very happy to learn about it. They're very happy to spot the turtles respectfully, but they do not know before arriving, unfortunately. So we try to do the most we can. We sponsor, we donate, we offer this awareness project with big success. Can you please Okay, and then we work very closely with ARCHELON. We're very happy with this. And I will be again, the sustainability does not stop here. Other aspects of the local community, again, we donate to the schools, to the hospitals, the nursing. It's a small company, and this is a best practice. So we try and show the locals that sharing the profit and the wealth of the hotels is easy. And this helps a lot also to better the image of the hospitality businesses that is unfortunately not very positive at the moment. It is a bit misunderstood, but many times the local community are right not to like us because we do not share enough. So our people, as from 2019, another aspect we emphasize a lot is offering our staff, our people, ergonomic and orthopedic training in order for them to be happier and to share the knowledge and the activities we share with our guests. Also, we offer street cleaning in the local community, and we have been chosen by WWF Greece to do a best practice with straw reduction years ago, and also with been chosen by WWF Germany, being part of the No Plastic in Hotels guide. So we're very happy to contribute with our best practices. Now, the second part of the presentation, more bulleted, what in our view is the touristic identity of Zakynthos Island for a more sustainable future in the post-COVID era. In our view, this better managed destination would be embracing the coexistence of the local communities with the marine protected areas and tourism. And one of the core motto of the marketing plan would be to promote to the guests the opportunity to observe the nesting areas, assist in protecting the MPA, watch the turtles release, what's the excavation, what's the careta slide. So it will not be a surprise when it is managed better. And it would be clarified before the guests arrive that the turtles are here and we need to respect them while we holiday. The guests are very happy to respect as long as they know. So in this new era, more sustainable era, the local authorities would promote Lacanas Bay as a uniquely chosen area as it is already now. And since there are no motorized water sports, unfortunately, even the locals do not know this, that we are in this divine island that the turtles and the other sea species choose. And with all this massive tourism, we would be in a very difficult spot, as Demetres described in the beginning, if the marine park did not exist. So because of this, if it's managed better, we can be highly popular also with guests of younger age, with families with children, and with well-off older ages that are very agile, where traveling whenever and however, and no matter how much it costs. And still, it would be the most popular nesting area for the careta. What kind of activities would this new, more sustainable destination promote? It would be low footprint activities. As we said before in our best practices, it can be snorkeling, scuba diving, luxurious sailing trips, always sharing the profit with the locals. It could be canoeing or SUP or swimming lessons or families or hiking and biking and marine observation spots or even zones. It can be Greek language lessons or history lessons or olive oil tasting, and the list is long. Then another idea would be to differentiate the beaches of the island, because it's very beautiful everywhere. It would be a nice way to separate the volume of the guests. So an idea could be to say, for example, that Chile is for surfing, the sulfate beaches are for well-being, Lacanas is only for observation, and the Cypriot for sightseeing. So the guests can be facilitated more happily. An idea could be to create underwater exploration diving area, which is really unexplored, and it is a pity because, again, guests do not know how fantastic it's to dive here with us, although we have exceptional professionals here. The marine observation zones, and of course, what is for us very obvious, the regulation to be applied. Unfortunately, the guests are very happy to see that the volunteers explain that the sunbeds need to be removed, and at the same time, all the organized beaches have permanent umbrellas. These cannot be together, and this is creating a conflict even in how we very simply and very naively present to the guest what's happening. So why should tourism be sustainable? Nature came first. As we protected the tree in our hotel, we have to protect the sea world and the nature. This is how we see it. The marine park adds unique value to the guest experience, and the environment is vital for the local communities. So the way we see it, it's not the tourism on the environment. The environment has habitats. That is the people, not only the species. So the environment is vital for the survival of the families as well. They also need a healthy environment. The animals need a healthy environment. So we can all live together very nicely as long as we get a bit better organized. So then one of the most important factors, and this is, I think, why all the big stakeholders are on our side, and this is a very good opportunity to change, is our guests. The guests today, due to the social media, due to the higher academic level of everyone at the moment compared to a few decades before, are sustainable. Today's guests live a sustainable life. They have received environmental education, and they expect us to run a hospitality business sustainably. So in order to target these quality travelers that can actually a more expensive product from us, and they can financially assist the local community also, which is very important for the marine park, but also for the local businesses, we need to go sustainable. Let's say we have today's challenges and things that go actually better than before. So we will close our presentation in a positive way. So today's challenges is that Zakynthos rapidly grew, and then gradually it has continued growing. At the moment, it is a major touristic destination of the global map, and it's the 5th most popular destination of Greece. A challenge is that most of the owners of the businesses at the moment are above 60 years old. This age did not receive environmental education when they were going to university or school. And that is why most of them at the moment do not apply it all sustainable routines in their everyday lives. That way they can never apply in their businesses unless they are forced to, or unless they can be shown by us that it is to their interest. So the explosive growth of tourism in the 90s was not foreseen or controlled, especially in Zakynthos. Still, the green incentives are not offered by the state. And within the growth, businesses and residencies have been built within the MPA borders, and these need to be removed with a cost, with political cost, with financial cost, but this is the only way that this can go forward and we can be discussing for a sustainability destination. Otherwise, this is very contradictory. Unfortunately, me starting here as a hotelier, we are not organized. We are actually disorganized. So this is a negative parameter. I hope this is corrected soon. And another point that is negative, especially for the Greek tourists and for the enterprise owners, is that sustainability until recently was very much misunderstood. By the businesses, they think it's a luxury to be sustainable, or that you have too high operational cost and it's not worth it, which is really not the case. And by the less experienced crowds, we are thought as a lack of comfort or a low budget holiday, which again is not the truth in our business, because the more we can be sustainable, the more the guest is happy to pay for our product. So the biggest challenge we find is the property development on the beach in Zakynthos. We are located in Agios Sostis. We need help there. The speed of boats needs to be controlled, and the authorities need to be given the freedom to do so. The urban development of the MPA, again, it needs to be controlled. There has to be political costs, otherwise we would have never been here. And I want to say now some positive parameters to go on a positive slide. Compared to 30 years ago or 40 years ago, the tourism started in Zakynthos, major tour operators now are on our side. So they set their own greener profiles because they found this is where the, let's say, selected travelers want to go the next day, and also because they find this is a correct way in order to conserve their destinations too. So hoteliers are driven, either they want it or not, to a more sustainable criteria. And I'm very happy to see this the last at least 5 years. Guests evaluate each hotel for its sustainability in a separate category. This, due to the social media, to the exposure that we have, this is fantastic because most of the big tour operators ask the guest, any nationality, to evaluate the hotels and their experience in the hotel regarding the sustainability management we had. So this means that the hotels want to look sustainable. So this is a way getting there. It's not ideal, but it's a way to get there. So at the same time, guests are happy. Research finds that guests are happy to pay up to 15% more for the same holiday if the same holiday is offered by a greener way or a greener hotel, which is very important to spread to my colleagues. Unfortunately, they ignore this information, although we keep repeating it. Finally, another positive parameter is that the single-use plastic is forbidden, finally. So this also opens the way. And environmental education is present. So we do hope that our colleagues, new and older ones, will now be able to have access to more environmental education. And this is very important. That's the only way we can find to be more green as businesses. The most important slide for today, because of the speakers also, is that today is better than 1980. We said there are a lot of challenges. It's very difficult. Nevertheless, the challenges for the local community were very harsh, very intense, and very violent back in the years. The turtle protection was not welcome. Volunteers were violently threatened until the Nikoloudakis family offered a shelter camp in Kalamaki, where they still are, and saved the area. So allow me to say that Chariklia, Theodota, Demetres, Nikos Haralambidis, Antonis Nikoloudakis, Dimitris Dimopoulos, and Mr. Arapis, thank you very much. We would not have been here without you. So this is a very, there is more. So this is a thank you for, but we need to say other positive things that are happening today. That's okay. So 30 years ago, until 15 years ago, cars were driving up and down on Lakanas Beach. So now that we only need to find whether the tourists are being there in the night, it's important to see that the cars and the vehicles are not there. The hoteliers were threatened. We had our entrances smashed if we accepted to have the volunteers showcase the Careta awareness slideshow, and this does not happen today. At the same time, there is high quality tourism establishments on the island that showcase the Zakynthos as a more, let's say, quality tourism destination, which is very important, and sustainable tourism as a term blooms today. Also, we have the Ionian University in the island, which is very important. And the main reason we find we're back in the sustainability management is because of the lack of environmental education. So this is a huge opportunity to make the difference. And last, the COVID safety protocol. So the COVID challenge for us has two contradictory bullets. One is that the COVID safety protocol has made us be much less sustainable with all the litter we need to produce. At the same time, it is a stop and think bullet. So it's a unique opportunity to motivate people and stakeholders around the core values and start from scratch. So now we're finished. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Lougari. It's very interesting and very hopeful to see a hands-on experience and the view of the sector, because sometimes we feel that we are in our own conservation bubble and we dictate for the different sectors, ideas and practices. So it's always a good sign to see that the ideas we promote for conservation can actually be applied in the tourism sector and be profitable for the owners of the different enterprises, and especially for the local communities, how the value of the protected area spills over to different stakeholders of the island. And now we will continue with Dr. Kizos. We hope that the connectivity problems are solved. Are you with us?
Now you can hear me, I think. And I think that you can also see my screen. And I will turn on the slide.
If you can just, great, thank you.
Okay, thank you. It was a good thing that I came after the last presentation, because most of the things I'm going to be discussing were already taught as good practices. So that makes my job a lot easier. Okay, so what is tourism? That's a good question, even if we think that we know the answer. And I will very shortly get into this, because I think it is important for what we have been discussing here today and what we want to achieve through this workshop. And then I try to focus a little bit on some of the things I have been doing in the past years about agritourism and rural tourism, which is related with tourism in protected areas. And in the end, also discuss a little bit sustainable tourism. I keep question marks in all, but the biggest question mark is in sustainable tourism. And I think that we should have two question marks there. Sustainable, question mark. Tourism, question mark. Sustainable tourism, another question mark. We'll get to this in a moment. First of all, tourism is now, along with the so-called leisure and free industry, the biggest industry in the world today, or it was until COVID. It will become very quickly the biggest industry in the world today. In 2019, 1.5 billion tourists left their country for another country. 1.5 billion, I will repeat this number again. It generated 1.7 trillion US dollars, not including domestic tourism or the so-called traveler industry. So along with it's part of the leisure or free time industry. Leisure and free time are 19th century inventions. They did not exist before in human history. And now they have developed into a big history. The idea of having free time, it didn't exist. There was no free time. Okay, it has two very, very important differences compared to all other economic activities. First of all, the businesses that sell tourism products do not sell. Can you please go back a slide to the screen that you have there? There, yes. It doesn't sell the resources you want to buy. The businesses, they do not sell you the beaches. They do not sell you the landscape. They do not sell you the cultural image of the idea, of the area. They sell you a bed and some services, but they do not sell you the public, the primer product, the primer service that you want to buy. Why? Because these are mostly public resources. So it's an industry that it has two different levels of supply. It has the first level of supply, which is not privately owned, at least in most countries, and the second level of supply that are the tourism businesses, and they all do sell products and services that they own. The rest, most of it, 90% of it, is based on things that they do not own. They are public resources. So this is very, very important for tourism in an area, because it from the start creates a sense of interconnectedness between the different tourist businesses in the area, because practically they all rely on the same resources which they do not individually own. The other thing that's also very different from most of the so-called traditional industries is that when you buy a shoe, it comes from China. It's shipped all the way to here. But when you buy a tourism service or a product, you go to the industry. You go to the factory. The factory does not come to you. It does not send something to you. You go to the factory. And I think it's fair to talk about factories because tourism is a very, very big industry. And this is perhaps one of the problems. This is good in a sense because people are happy when they go somewhere. They are more inclined to spend more money when they're happy, when they're satisfied. But it also creates a lot of issues in terms of competitiveness because you have to attract the visitor to the area. Let's keep these two differences in mind as we will try to discuss a little more about tourism. I will go now to the so-called agri-tourism or rural tourism. It's very difficult to separate between these two. I mean, when we started talking about agri-tourism in the rural development literature back in the 1980s, the literature said that there was a pure form of agri-tourism somewhere in Platonic ideas, somewhere up in the sky, and this was the good thing. And the rest were not very good thing, agri-tourism services or products, and you had to make them better. It is a form of tourism where urban tourists visit farms or businesses who are in rural areas and witness local agriculture and production systems. Initially, farmers were supposed to provide all services. Do we want that? I'm not sure. We will discuss this a little bit. Three basic developments. First of all, one is that demand has increased very much. 2 years ago, the United Nations announced that for the first time in human history, more than 50% of the global population now lives in cities. It is a big benchmark for human history, I think. The percentage is going to just keep growing and growing and growing. In the European Union and in Greece, we have tipped that point decades ago. In Greece, 20% of people lived in urban areas in the beginning of the 20th century, and now 23% live in rural areas. The rest is living in cities, and it is the same with most of the so-called developed world, who are tourists, most of them. Why is this important? Because these types of rural tourism are related with urban tourists. You cannot really imagine a farmer going for agritourism, do you? Of course not. Why would you go to do something different of what you do every day? Urban people would like to reconnect with farms, with food, with nature. We'll see about this in a moment. But this is a very big development. Demand increases, and it increases rapidly, both in so-called luxurious agritourism, Tuscany style, also in, let's say, more traditional agritourism. Huh? The second development is that people now require quality of service and products in tourism and also in rural tourism and agritourism. Can farmers provide this quality? I'm not sure. So there is a big a mismatch between what farmers can offer and what tourists want. I think it's a good, and we go now to the third development, which leads us to the professionalization of the services. And this is a good thing, because it's provided by people who know or have been trained to talk to tourists, but also to preserve the resources at the same time. And this is related more to tourism, more than agri, but also to agri. Now, what type of agri-tourism do people really want to have? I think that the pictures from the previous presentation were very revelatory to me, again, because they kind of prove my point that tourists do not want to go to a farm, to a real farm, to a real today's farm. They don't want to go to a greenhouse to see where the real tomatoes come from, the ones that they will be eating later in the restaurants. They don't want to go to a real slaughterhouse to see where the meat comes from, or to a real sheep farm in the uphills of Zakynthos. Why? Because it's dirt, it's smelly. No, they want to. What they want to do is get into a time machine and go back in the 1950s, the 1960s. They want to see a farm where they have a patch of vegetables, a few sheep, clean sheep, a couple of olive trees, where they can also spend an hour pretending that they're collecting. It's the essence of tourism service, if you want, the mediation. They do not want to go visit the real thing, the real agriculture, working from 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night. Of course not. Who would pay to do that? You have to get paid to do that, not pay. So it's a kind of mediation. So in a sense, agri-tourism and rural tourism is mediated, of course, and should be mediated. Why? Take a look at the pictures again. Who are the people there? Families with small children or elderly people? Ding, ding, ding. You see the red lights flashing? You want to let these people really in a farm with machines and big animals? So you don't want to do that. It's very dangerous for them. It's very dangerous even for your farm, I think. So it's a mediation, and it's a good thing. Don't think I don't like that. It's a good thing because it's safer for tourists, it's safer for farmers, and it also allows a level of professionalization. That is the thing that we're looking for, and I will go into more a little of that. Now, about rural tourism and agri-tourism, there are 3 questions that we need to ask. What is the nature of interaction between the visitors and agriculture? If agriculture put nature, it's the same thing. I mean, is agriculture nature? Is going to an olive field going to nature? Or in a tomato orchard, are you going to nature? In a grazing land? I don't know. Does it matter? If they pay, no, it doesn't really matter. Is the product based on a working farm? And does the visitor experience authentic working agriculture? Not participating, but watching mostly. And this is a typology that we use to classify different agri-tourism and rural tourism facilities. 5 different categories, from just accommodation in the countryside, which is this case here, to a working farm with direct authentic interaction in agri-tourism, which is the case we saw before. Is it important to have all types? There's no golden rule to this question. I think that what we need to consider, besides the type of the units that we have in an area, is their scale of operation. Are they small? Are they medium size? Are they large size? And most important of all, the networks, the local and extra local networks that they are involved in. This is really, really important in terms of understanding the impact at the island level, as in Zakynthos, or at the area level, as in anywhere else. Why do we need that? Because the impacts are of different kinds. Economic impact, societal impact, and environmental impact. And it isn't just the type of agritourism or farm-related tourism units that operate that is important. It's also, and I will go into a little bit more detail on this, the networks that are related. Here we have a presentation of a research we did. We compared agritourism units on Lesbos Island, which is here, and the Plastiras Lake area, which is here. These are all the businesses that we could find. So we asked them to identify their linkages with other businesses in the area. And the more businesses they are linked to, the bigger the circle. The bigger the circle, the more important the actor in the network. Why? More people listen to them. I've made a link, I've made a red dot here. This is the Lesbos Geopark, which is a protected area and the management body of this protected area. But it's more related to abiotic heritage, if there is such a thing, rather than biotic conservation like you have in Zakynthos. More about geology and geological features rather than animals and plants. But mostly animals, I would say. Mostly mammals in most areas, not in Zakynthos though. So it is really important in terms of networking. It can be more important. It should be more important. Why are these important for protected areas? Because they can be linked to tourism infrastructure and tourism activities and products. Most important thing in my opinion, and it was stressed in the other presentation, that's why I say that my work has been done very easy now. Linkages and networks are really, really important. More people have to buy into this. They also can be used to rally local interests and protect landscapes, sites, and landmarks, and species, along with sites and landscapes. Things are changing. Things are changing in the perceptions of the locals. Things are changing in the perception of the tourists. But at the same time, someone has to be active locally to rally, and people can rally around this actor. And also what is important for me, at least from a professional also point of view, is to help and shape quality systems for products and services in these protected areas. Why quality? Because this is what we want to do. Quality in tourism, quality in conservation, quality if you want an economic and social impact of these activities. Here I have the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations framework. It's related to GI products, geographical indication products, but it can be used for all kinds of local resources that are somehow linked to a common activity, a common goal, a common target. You identify the local specific resources, you develop the product and the service, you qualify this, you remunerate, gain money out of the tourism activities, and you reproduce it. So that's how it's supposed to go, but different areas and different cases can, of course, work from different viewpoints and standpoints. What we have worked in other areas is here and abroad in partnership agreements on quality systems for products and services. They kind of resemble international certification of quality from geographical indications. Why? Because in this kind of products, in PDO and PGI products, if you know any other than feta, the products do not belong to the producers, they belong to the area. It's exactly like the resources of the protected areas. They do not belong to individual businesses that operate within the area, they belong to the area. So it is important to have an actor that the rest of the actors can rally around. It is important to have a document that can, well, document the type of cooperation that they can have. Here is what you could include in this: the vision, the goal, the area, the inclusion and exclusion criteria. I won't go into detail into this. You can see it later. But what is important here is networking, collaboration, and building quality products and services, like the one we saw in the previous presentation. But the problem with this is that if you want to upscale the level of economic and societal impacts, you have to upscale this type of activities as well. I wanted to comment now something that was said previously. So tourists do not really know about turtles when they come to Zakynthos. Is this a bad thing? I mean, what will you do if not 1 million that arrived in Zakynthos, 200,000 came for the turtles? What will you do then? Where would you get them to view turtles? The problem is upscaling in all types of economic activities that are related to local development and rural development. Can we upscale sustainably? Which brings us back to my original question, sustainable tourism. I'll give you an example, a personal example. We work in Limnos Island for a project that is related to developing a biodiversity-friendly label for local products. Why? Because local farmers follow certain types of practices that we have proven, demonstrated, documented that sustain biodiversity on the island compared to other products. This is financed, partly financed, also by a charity foundation that is owned by a billionaire. Let's not name names. So he arrived last September to the island for a workshop. So he flew in with his private jet. The cost of bringing this private jet was the cost of the whole project together. So is this sustainable? I'm asking you. Is this sustainable to have 1 million tourists in Zakynthos? Is it sustainable? Tourism can be regarded as sustainable, involving all that international travel? Philosophical questions, you may say. But they are real questions in the end. I will try to close on a positive note. So we have seen it work, this type of agreements in other areas, or try to work at least. I think that Zakynthos is really mature for this type of thing. I mean, like the previous speaker said, the locals are now, I think, half convinced that something good can happen out of this, and that it can be combined somehow with tourism. I mean, not really combined, but it's not incompatible with tourism. It's really important that this has been demonstrated through this decade-long struggle of locals and conservationists on the island. And if it's successful, it can really boost rural development and local development and enhance networks with farmers, with other professionals, and also provide more job opportunities like the ones we saw in the previous slide. More people, professionals who can provide this type of activities: scuba diving, walks in the countryside, biking, running or trails in the countryside, tastings, and also local culture. All these are different types of services and activities that can be linked and built behind this type of goals and conservation objectives. Nothing succeeds like success, of course. And if locals see successful examples like the ones we saw before, many people will want, more people will want it. I think I've finished my time, so I'll leave you with some pictures from Lesbos. Taken in an olive plantation. These orchids were taken in an olive plantation. So nature, agriculture. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kizos. I think you asked some very difficult questions about the challenges and the possible future of different activities and eventually the capacity of the different places and especially protected areas and marine protected areas to carry on with a certain model of development. We have a final video, and we'll take this time for our speakers to gather their thoughts and think a little bit about two questions that I would like to go around and discuss in our final part. What is the main lesson learned from Zakynthos or from the existing situation in marine protected areas that would like to take and perhaps change if we could have a time machine? And the second question being, what would be a key message for a new MPA, an area that is now being designed and designated? We have run out of time, so I will give 1 minute to each one of our speakers to express their views. But first, let's see our final video.
Of tourism. Hello everyone, my name is Athina Babakou and I'm the Director of Strategic Planning at the Greek Ministry of Tourism. Our key priority is to enhance the authenticity and the resilience of Greek tourism. And how do we do that? By creating a new model of sustainable quality tourism, diversifying the tourism offer through thematic product development. This definitely includes special interest tourism, such as ecotourism in protected areas, fostering the upgrade of both tourism establishment and infrastructure to provide high-quality services with low ecological footprint. The main challenge in the post-COVID era is the quickest possible recovery with a shift towards sustainable travel experiences for a resilient, inclusive, and resource-efficient future. There is an increasing tourism demand globally for such experiences, for tourism destinations and businesses that are developing in a sustainable way and respect the environment. To name a few opportunities in the post-COVID era, I would definitely mention the new financial tools, European funding programs, and the Greek Recovery Plan as means aiming at the enhancement of the green economy and the digital transition. So there is no excuse for the tourism sector to ignore the need for more sustainability from now on. I would like to congratulate WWF on this initiative, the first Blue Panda Lab, to which I wish all success. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think we have all the panelists here. And I'll start with order of appearance since this morning. So Demetres, if you would like to comment on these questions, lessons learned and the key message.
Thanks, Panayota. And maybe I'll just respond to both questions at the same time with one answer. I think it's important that there is agreement on the vision, on the values, and on the priorities that we're setting. And that takes collaboration. And I would just, I was stricken by that last slide of Mr. Arapis' conscious choice. I think it is about the conscious choice. So we need to work at making that a conscious choice for everyone. Thank you.
Sorry, I had some problems with my sound. Laurent.
Yes, I think really that as a conclusion and by experience, let's say that it's a problem of maybe also quantity versus quality. We have to reconsider what is quality and what is quantity, and if maybe the one can take the place of the other, because with the quantity, I cannot see a solution in the future. It means that there is a problem of carrying capacity. We cannot, or the habitats, natural habitats and species cannot support or cannot take more pressure. So we have to give a priority maybe to quality and not to quantity. It means that you reconsider all the tourism packages that you will build from the beginning to the end. And looking forward, I'll say that it's about planning. If we are not able to plan, especially in the marine areas, because we are still lagging behind about urban planning, about land planning, but about marine planning, we are, let's say, 1,000 years behind. So we need to go on and to be able to foresee what we have to protect, where are rules needed, and what is the carrying capacity of the marine area. If we don't do that, we won't be able to tackle really this issue and to make tourism and conservation compatible. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Arapis?
Oh, hi. First question is, what is the main lesson learned from Zakynthos? Am I right?
Yes. Yes.
Well, in my opinion, there is an urgent need for a local action plan for sustainable tourism on Zakynthos. Not on a theoretical point of view, from a theoretical point of view. A local action plan, which will derive primarily from the tourist sector and the local stakeholders. And this will set the framework for what is Zakynthos local community considers as local development at the moment. What is the position that Zakynthos is taking towards tourism right now, right here? Regarding the second question has to do with what is the key message to a new MPA? Am I right with this?
Exactly.
I would say that it's a very difficult answer to this. In my opinion, there needs to be a strong commitment from as many actors as possible, from the environmental point of view, from the hotel industry point of view, and from the local community point of view. So strong commitment. And we cannot expect to have a higher state of consciousness in order to bring this into a reality. I think we have to start from whatever level of consciousness exists right amongst us, and manage to harness our will and work with a strong commitment towards this direction. And this may lead us to an increased state of consciousness, which is an absolutely necessary parameter if human race is to be is to continue, living on this planet. That's my answer to the second question.
Thank you. Ms. Gomei?
Sorry, was trying to mute myself. Well, of course, this is $1 million questions or $2 million questions, because of course there is not one solutions, there is not one recipe. There are several ingredients that should be integrated and different solutions to be integrated. Several of those have been already mentioned by my colleagues before. Maybe what I would like to add to this discussion is the fact that we should consider and reconvert and readdress the available recovery funds or the current financing mechanism towards conservation. So the representative from the Ministry of Tourism was mentioning that there is an interest to invest on sustainable tourism. This is great. And I think that there is already a change in the awareness on that this is a real niche of market that should be supported. However, to arrive to the sustainability, we need to invest on effective protected areas in effective sustainable management measures. So we cannot arrive to a sustainable tourism if the MPA managers has not the capacity to do monitoring, patrolling, to implement the management plans. So we need to redirect part of those funds to the actual work in the field so that the resources can be present, maintained, and restored for the sustainable tourists or responsible tourists that are interested to invest and to visit those areas. So this is, I would say, a lesson learned from Zakynthos, because the elements are all there. The local community is aware. There is a lot of awareness. There are a lot of already of opportunities as sectors that are willing to cooperate. What it is needed is a serious investment to have an effective conservation and to create those participatory management planning that brings together all the different elements. And this is, of course, is the message also for the new protected areas that should be created in the future. And thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Odelberg?
Yes. Now I'm here. I don't know what to add to the first question here. I think everybody answered that already really well. What I can see when I visit Zakynthos and a marine protected area compared to other marine protected areas is that the regulations and rules are being followed more strictly in other places. And that's something I think people working with tourism here should go out and spread information even more intense and harder for us tourists, because it's our responsibility. But sometimes it feels like we leave our brain home and go to holiday, and then we can behave however we like. And that's something that we tourists have to actually take in, in great serious. Be serious about that. When it comes to the other question, I think for marine protected areas, I know as well that people want to be more involved. They want to feel more responsible. And when I've been to expeditions with scientists, we also bring tourists as citizen science. And citizen scientists are, anyone can come and they help the scientists to collect data, be involved, and they learn much more about the specific topic. And that's one thing that I think will grow. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Lougari?
Yes. as Mr. Arapis said, it's very important that there is an action plan. So there is an action plan in Zakynthos, in the prefecture's in the municipality office. The previous tourism committee, actually with a very important tourism consultant, created a marketing plan for Zakynthos destination. So sustainability is a part of it. We hope it is implemented. Of course, the marine park is taken into account greatly, and we hope it is implemented. There is a difficulty there because it's sitting in a drawer for 3 years. I hope this changes. The message in our view is that it is important to embrace the marine park in all the hospitality businesses. That way the awareness will be more effective. And education, environmental education is what is missing. So the marine park, together the university, they can work miracles. That is our point of view. The negative message is that the marine park, unfortunately, has rented some property, some families out of property. So there has to be, the authorities need to give justice to that. The marine park is not to blame, but the image is not as positive as it should have been. We have to work around it, and it only adds value. That is our point of view.
Thank you. And Dr. Kizos?
Hello, everyone. First of all, let me give a salute to Laurent after all these years. 25 years. Okay, after that, I think that the greatest lesson, and I think that people in Zakynthos and you should be proud of this, is Zakynthos itself. The fact that something has happened, that there was a marine protected area, it remained protected, some conservation actions have been implemented. I mean, I compare it with Kaloni here on Lesbos, and I don't know anymore, I don't have any more hair to start to pull out. It's the message for Zakynthos is that it has happened, and that locals are somehow semi-convinced that these two activities can be compatible in principle, or are not incompatible. And I think this is the key message. Like I said, nothing succeeds like success. So persistence and resilience works. The other thing is connectedness and networking. I mean, if there is a strategic plan, it's a good thing. If locals are convinced that it will work, that's even a better thing. And I think that small, successful examples can give the tone to the rest. Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if there are final remarks that any of our panelists would like to add. We are 10 minutes late, I think, but we can be a couple, not more. If there is something that you would like to add to what has been said already. Probably not. It's summer, it's midday. So once again, I would like to thank you very much for your contribution, for your presence, and for your willingness to be part of this first Blue Panda Lab that we hope will be the first of a series. And so we'll have the chance to meet again and discuss again things related to the future and the present of marine protected areas in the Mediterranean, and why not in the seas of the world. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.